Thank you for joining us on Plus TV Africa, and this is One on One. My name is Mary-Ann Okon. Today we are going to be hosting the former governor of Cross River State, Mr. Donald Duke, and of course the SDP presidential candidate for the 2019 elections. It's good to have you in the studio, Mr. Donald Duke.
Thank you, Mary-Ann.
All right, so of course, I mean, everybody is talking about the recent court judgment that has declared you the presidential candidate of the SDP, and we all are aware of the drama that led up to that. Tell us how you felt yesterday immediately after that court judgment.
It was a Pyrrhic victory. We won fair and square in October, on the 6th of October. 812 votes. Now, Professor Ghana, who is my chief opponent, he had 611. If you put all the other votes together, they still don't get up to 812. But I said it's a Pyrrhic victory because it doesn't advance a cause. Rather, we're taking away from our party. We had hoped to position our party as the alternative between the two behemoths, PDP and APC. We've lost a lot of time, and if we had succeeded, it would have been a collective victory. Unfortunately, we're literally going to be working against the tide to make that impact. And so it's a lesson for politicians, you know, to look at the larger picture. But the critical thing here, Mary-Ann, is this. We were talking about my constitutional right to contest an office. It has nothing to do with the party. The party is only a platform that enables you to aspire for the office.
But that platform also has rules and regulations that you need to work with.
Absolutely, but the platform cannot determine the qualification for the office. It's a constitutional office. And the Constitution is very clear that the criteria for running for the office is A, you're a citizen of Nigeria, B, you're above a certain age, I believe it's 40, C, your minimum qualification educationally is school cert, and D, you're without any criminal convictions. It doesn't talk about where you come from and all that, okay? And so even if the party, assuming the party says that you must come from a certain section of the country, it's unconstitutional. But the party never said so. The party said this: where the president comes from a section of the country, the national chairman will come from the other section of the country. The point here is, I'm not president, I'm presidential candidate. And if you interpret it further, it says where the president, in other words, it's not determining where the president will come from.
Okay.
It's determining where the national chairman will come from. It says where the chairman comes from.
So if you, who's a candidate, emerges as president, it means automatically
the national chairman would have to be replaced.
Interesting.
That's what it meant. And that's what the court stated.
A lot has been happening. Mergers, coalitions here and there. Are you interested in any?
It's a bit late in forming a coalition because we're already on the ballot. Okay, it's 22 days or thereabout to the elections. What are you merging? The name of each party will be on the ballot. And that's why INEC rejected Obi Ezekwesili's step down, because it's already on the ballot. It wouldn't make much of an impact. We ought to have done this months and months ago.
But then there is some agreement that we are aware of that the CUPP has, which includes the SDP and some other parties. Yes. What exactly is that agreement about?
The CUPP was formed with a view to having a coalition of a number of parties so that we run under a common platform, or at least under a common alliance. Okay. Unfortunately, immediately after the primaries, and the last date of the primaries for the parties was the 6th of October. Immediately after that date, we ought to have come together to decide who runs for what. In other words, okay, you can have someone, obviously you have a presidential candidate from one party. Maybe you pick someone from another party as running mate, you know, so that it's a shared alliance. And even if you don't pick, regardless of what you're going to have, we need to agree, form a common agreement as to how the alliance will work. We did not. Oh, everyone went on his own, okay? And the arrowhead ought to have been the PDP, being the largest party in the alliance. Yeah. The candidate there, Atiku Abubakar, picked his entire team, then asked the rest to line up behind. And That wasn't going to work.
We're not in agreement.
That's
right.
that, I think, is what the kernel of what.
And so that MOU that was signed does not hold water.
Absolutely.
And will not. Okay, let's move on. So the SDP in Lagos, as of yesterday, was asking the federal SDP, that's the national. SDP, to uphold the court judgment so that there can be unity and forward and onward development of the party. Do you think that this court case has somewhat divided the party?
It has, no doubt about that. We all have our followership and all that. It has divided the party. It was totally unnecessary. Before the judgment came out, the national chairman called a meeting between Jerry Ghana, myself, and a few party executives. And I made a pledge that regardless of the outcome of the judgment, I would abide by it. In other words, if Jerry Ghana emerged victorious, I propose to be his cheerleader, okay? Because there's a larger picture here. There's a picture of an emerging party, and there's a desire for Nigerians to have an alternative. He did not reciprocate this gesture. He said he'll have to consult. He's still consulting, but the feelers I'm getting are not healthy. There's talk about him going to the Supreme Court for this. It's not helping the party.
Why do you think that Professor Jerry Ghana had so much intent to run? Why, if the SDP, as you said, was to become the third force against the APC and the PDP, why was there not an understanding before now that, look, whoever emerges, we want to form a third force?
There was. We all signed an undertaking that whoever emerges in the process will be supported by all. We all did. There were 4 or 5 of us that contested. And that's also one of the grounds the Court of Appeal frowned at, that you can't sign an undertaking to do something, and when it goes against you, you thrash the undertaking. We all signed.
How is the third force supposed to fight against the 2 big parties if you are not even able to stick to an agreement?
Well, not me, not me.
But you're part of the third force.
Yes, but the agreement here, like I said to you, I was prepared to abide regardless of the outcome of the Court of Appeal. I think Professor Ghana really thought he had it all sewn up, and he's finding it hard to reconcile that someone else could defeat him in a party which he felt he built up. I think that's a problem. It's an ego problem which we all have to overcome.
Now let's talk about the most recent, the Chief Justice of the Federation's suspension, and of course the installation of a new one who's acting without, according to lawyers and the NBA, it was done without due process. And yet again, another breach of the law has happened according to lawyers. Do you have any thoughts on this?
A lot.
I'd like to hear.
I'm a lawyer, first and foremost. It is the most stupendous thing I've heard in my 36 years as a lawyer. It's unheard of for a president to suspend a chief judge. I mean, even in a dictatorship, it's not done. Throughout almost 38 years of military rule, no military president suspended, let alone removed a CJN in this country. It's never happened. So for it to happen in a democracy, it's totally unheard of. His court is a Supreme Court. This matter is not before the Supreme Court. It's before the Code of Conduct Tribunal, which is an arm of the executive. So the executive is trying him. You are being a judge in your own case. That's one, and that is against the principle of law. Besides, the Court of Appeal on Thursday, right, asked that this matter be held in abeyance. So they're disobeying a court order. And why the speed? Obviously, there's a script being played out here. You go to court on a Friday, you appeal on a Friday, on Monday, you're asking him to sit. It doesn't work that way. There is a process that you take. And in the the High Court made a ruling, the Appeal Court made a ruling, the government is disobeying the ruling. But I tell you, what I find most embarrassing about all this is that a justice of the Supreme Court agreed to be sworn in his place. It is sad that a fellow colleague would take advantage of this. It just shows that there's no honor.
The man who's being appointed as acting judge, is he not supposed to have a right to say, well, Your Excellency, I'm sorry, I'll have to decline because this is against the law?
In a principled environment, that would be the only way out.
But has that ever happened in Nigeria? Has anybody ever?
I said in the principled environment, it tells you the sort of environment under which we operate. There are about 15 justices of the Supreme Court or thereabout. They all should have come together and said, no way. No way, we can't do this. Because if you undermine the judiciary, where's the hope? In a democracy? And today he was going to swear in the election tribunal members. So is this all about that? You know, when you carry out a process like this, it should be so transparent. You must go the extra mile to make it so transparent that nobody can query the process.
Well, we'll come back to talk more about this transparency issue. If you're just watching us, it's Plus TV Africa, and we're talking one-on-one with former Governor of Cross River State, Mr. Donald Duke, presidential aspirant or candidate for the Social Democratic Party. We'll be right back after the break. Thank you for joining us. It's still Plus TV Africa, and we are one-on-one with Mr. Donald Duke, presidential candidate for the Social Democratic Party. Many people have said, we have a Ganduje who's walking free. We have a Baba Chair who has not been, tried. How come we didn't see this amount of speed when he had to do with them? In fact, at some point, Mr. President made a case for Ganduje during his town hall meeting. So where's the place of transparency in all of this?
You know, there's an unfortunate statement attributed to Adams Oshiomhole that if you want to get away with crime, join the APC. And he said it at a campaign rally. But actions speak louder than words. The actions of the government have put truth to that statement. Those being persecuted are from the opposing party. And when they join the APC, the brakes are held on the case. Everything slows down and takes a certain pace, Ganduje enjoys immunity, so there's not much you can do there. But it does not take away the fact that he can be investigated. You cannot prosecute, but you can investigate the matter. The former SGF does not enjoy that, but we know that there's nothing happening to that case. Court orders are randomly disobeyed. The case of the former NSA, Sambo Dasuki, is pathetic. Several courts have given orders to the effect that he should be released on bail. Since when did embezzlement not become a bailable offense? Then worse still, El Zazaki. What's his offense? He marched against the convoy of the Chief of Army Staff. Okay? Does that warrant killing people? Bringing down his homestead, killing his son, and put him in jail for the last 3 years? The point here is, where are we heading to? You made a statement during the break that the president at the NBA forum said national interest supersedes the rule of law. That is, who defines national interest? That's an analogy for anarchy and chaos, because he wakes up one morning and decides that taking a march against the convoy of the Chief of Army Staff, right, is against national interest, right? And therefore the rule of law will have to step back. And despite several court orders, okay, nothing happens. Now, this is happening, and it's coming closer home, right? It's this arm of government ought to withdraw its service completely.
How do you mean withdraw its
Just
service?
suspend. The judiciary says we can't function anymore under this environment. You see, if you watch what's been going on in the United States, back and forth between the Congress,
Pelosi.
someone has to back off. And last night, Trump backed down. He didn't get anything. He didn't get his wall because people stand for truth. We don't stand for truth, right? We saw it happening to El Zaki. We did nothing. We saw it happening to Sambo Dasuki. We did nothing. Not too long ago, the president of the Senate was being charged for spurious for armed robbery. We heard, I mean, the president, I mean, whatever you want to say about him, but armed robbery. You see, and the onus is on you to prove this. You don't just throw allegations at people. Now, one of the grounds for the removal of the CJN, apart from what they're claiming, and this is the president in his speech, is that the Supreme Court condones corruption. You can't judge the Supreme Court. It's ludicrous. But it obviously a country that is falling apart.
So what do we do in one sentence? How do we get past this? Where do we go from here?
Vote him out.
Interesting. Let's talk about your manifesto. What's your manifesto for those who do not really know? I mean,
the thrust of my case for presidency is the eradication of abject poverty not even abject, of poverty in our society. That is the bane of everything going on, whether it's corruption, insecurity. It's the poverty the pervading poverty that subsists in our society. When people are corrupt, when people are poor, they're susceptible to corruption.
Do you think you can win?
Why not? If I didn't think, I wouldn't.
With all of the things that are unfolding, I'm not saying.
It's not a joke. It's hard work.
How do you hope to win? I mean, we have seen Obieze-Kwesili's party pledge its support to Atiku. We have seen
not to Atiku,
to Buhari, I beg your pardon, and then several other people, you know, moving grounds. How easy do you think this will be for you?
May I ask you a question?
Please do.
Would you support my candidature?
I'm unbiased. I'm a journalist.
No.
I cannot tell anybody who I will support. It's nobody's business.
Truth is this. If I run, I might lose. If I don't run, I'm guaranteed to lose. There are no guarantees in politics. If there were, Hillary Clinton would be president today. She scored more votes than Donald Trump. The point I'm making here is that there are so many undecided voters. Statistically, there's 68% undecided. In other words, these 68 are not enamored by either the APC or the PDP. They're looking for an alternative. The onus is on me to present myself as that viable alternative. Okay. So yes, there are no votes out there unencumbered that I could take.
Do you have the machinery to run that kind of, because in Buhari's case, he didn't have the money, but he had the apparatus, he had the guys, you know, it was more like a propaganda campaign.
A smart campaign, that's why I use the word a smart campaign. I wouldn't tell you what it means, but it's a smart campaign.
So is this like a trade secret?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. It's a smart campaign. You can reach everyone without going the way you are. We need to do that.
And this is an if question. Where do we go if Buhari wins? Do you think corruption will take us to...
Look.
Or his anti-corruption war will
if I take a trajectory from where we are, a Buhari over the last 3.5 years who was incapacitated by ill health and who has shown his fangs, who has gone at midnight to arrest judges, right, who has tolerated criminals or accused people, let me not call them criminals, accused persons because they have joined his party, who sees no evil as long as you are within his ranks, right? If I extrapolate and traject from there, the next 4 years of a Buhari administration will be, I don't know. I don't know. But you can see the fangs are gradually coming out. What happened to the CJN? It's not something we should take lightly at all. It's on It's unheard of that you can pick up the Chief Justice of a nation, suspend him as if he's a clerk in your office, and install someone else. And we're all watching. The rest of the world must think that we are the biggest. I think we're not Banana Republic. This is plantain.
Okay. One last question before I let you go. Thank goodness you did what you did in Cross River. But there are people who are still angry at you, and they said you abandoned the state. Yes, some other person was governor, and then another person is governor, and Calabar as it is a shadow of itself. So why should we make you president?
No, but what do they want me to do? I'm a Democrat. There's a new captain on the ship, right? I should go co-captain with him. People who say that
whatever happened to advisory roles?
You can only advise, and if it's not taken, what do you do? And I do advise. I do speak up. I do criticize, but I try not to, because when you criticize, they become defensive. And since I have access to them, I can only tell them these are my viewpoints, but they don't want to take it. So what do? You have to respect that there's a new captain on the ship, and stay back and hope for the best. Talk to him when you can, because you have access. But I think it's unfair to me to say, oh, I abandoned the state. I do not. I go for Carnival every year. I try to show and encourage people. My house is a mecca to people to come to. I go see the governor. I make suggestions here and there and all that. But you need to understand that man is in charge. He has as much authority as you had in your time, right? I'm not going to bully him. I cannot bully him. You know?
Now that you're in the SDP, are you supporting Ayo Ekpo? Do you think he would make a good governor?
I think I've worked with Ayo. He was my Attorney General yes. for 4 years. Ayo would be a brilliant governor.
Is it because he's on your party?
No. The truth is, Ayo joined the SDP before I did. Okay? I know him. I've worked with him. He's not a conventional politician, right? He doesn't flower his thoughts. He says it as it is, so he doesn't literally endear himself to most people. But I don't think that is what we require right now. We want someone who can get the job done. We need to recalibrate our state. We need to restore, as it were. We were a state in flight. I mean, we were the pride of the nation. Ayo, I have the belief and confidence he can do that.
Okay. What are your thoughts about Atiku? He also was the vice president to former President Obasanjo. And now it seems like the former president is leaning towards him. What are your thoughts, quickly?
Well, you know, people are free to support anyone they wish to. And the President Obasanjo supporting Atiku, that's his free will, and we need to respect that. Atiku aspiring for president, that's his right. I respect that. My problem with the PDP is that there's a lot of, except, it was a great party. It was the first truly national party. So you're saying
it's no longer a great party?
Now it's been buccaneered and taken over by people who don't have national aspirations.
Is that why you left?
Yes.
Interesting.
I still believe in idealism. Pragmatic idealism. And I don't find that in the PDP any longer. I mean, by the time they brought the likes of Sheriff to be national chairman and all that, and you could see that PDP that used to win elections nationwide is now confined, right, to certain geopolitical areas. So it is lost, is lost there.
To the young person who's watching you, who somewhat may have been your follower, or maybe believes in the fact that you started young. I remember you were speaking at an event with Shori, and he was, taking you on the fact that you're not necessarily young, and you decided to tell him, put out your CV and tell us where you started and how you started. And some of them believe in your ideas. Why should they come out and vote for you?
Well, if they believe in what I have done, I have, like you said, I had tremendous advantages, and I'm grateful for them. I was commissioner at the age of 30, governor at 37. But I do have a track record, so I can be judged on something, right? A lot of the folks who are running today, apart from Buhari, none of them has headed a government. Atiku has never headed a government. He's been number 2. So if he's going to run, he's going to run on the glory of Obasanjo and the Obasanjo years. I'm the only one on the ballot alongside with Buhari, who has headed a government. And so I can be judged on how I did when I was there. And if they feel that I did reasonably well, under difficult circumstances, Cross River is not the most financially strong state in the nation. But it's not finance that grows a state or a nation. It's your vision and your will. And we exhibited the will to move our state forward, even when cynics and skeptics abound. With the same vision and will, I believe we can move this nation to greater heights. I talked of UBI. It is so embracing. Think of a nation where everyone has something to do. We would find something for you to do because it's a right for you to have a job. It's not a privilege. You have a right to sustainability. You cannot talk of a nation where people are begging on the streets and we pretend as if this is not happening. We need to attain that ideal where we would find something for you to do, you know. And therefore, we would build a producing and consuming nation. There's no point asking people to go manufacture goods when at the same time you don't have the population that has the purchasing power to purchase the goods, you know. So we need to balance it, like breathing in and breathing out. We need to create a nation of producers and consumers.
Okay. Well, it's been our pleasure hosting today on One-on-One Mr. Donald Duke, presidential candidate for the Social Democratic Party, that's the SDP. It's been a pleasure. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Donald Duke.
Thank you, Mary-Ann.
Pleasure talking with you.
My pleasure, too.
Thank you. And that's it on the show. My name is Mary-Ann Okon. Enjoy the rest of our programs.